And welcome back to the Crushing Iron Podcast.
You're wired this morning. It's a Monday. It's January 25th, the year 2021. Welcome aboard. This is the Crushing Iron Podcast, and we are episode 446.
Yes, we are.
It is a rainy, gloomy day here, which is not how you want to have Mondays, but it's going to be like 67 and sunny here tomorrow.
That's what I hear. Yeah, I know. I was kind of
spectacular.
thinking about, man, maybe it's time to get the bike out.
It is time to get the bike out, get going, especially if we can do it in January. We've had a oddly enough, like somewhat mild January, but here, at least in the South, from my experience, February and March, and a lot of times March is always like the coldest month. So we'll see what happens. But I was looking at the forecast for next week because we have a run camp in Nutley, Tennessee, which is, again, my favorite camp that we have. We post up for 4 straight days. Wednesday through Sunday, we park, no one gets in their car again. We run, we have fun, we all stay in the lodge. We have dinners catered every night and breakfast in the final morning.
Catered?
And the weather is looking spectacular. Yeah, from Pretty Good Cafe. We'll give them a shout out. They do a fantastic job.
Cafe, that's my kind
Let's
of
go
name.
Pretty Good. It's Purdy.
Oh, Purdy Good?
P-U-R-D, and that's a Pretty Good Cafe. It's Pretty Good Cafe.
This is a pretty good podcast.
Yeah, this is a pretty good Southern podcast. Speaking of, we appreciate you tuning in. If it's your first time listening, we hope you stick around because we'll eventually get into triathlon talk for the most part, but our podcast covers it all. We cover triathlon, we cover life, we cover everything in between. Sometimes we'll go and do specific aspects of how to train for swimming, cycling, and running, and how you can combine those together to hopefully perform better in the sport of triathlon. We'll also just talk about what's going on in our lives. We're both coaches, we're both athletes. We work with a lot of athletes around the world. And a lot of times we'll kind of use the pulse from them to drive the conversation on the podcast. Sometimes we'll go on to our Facebook group, and if you want to be in that and you aren't, it's a great, they have great conversation there. A lot of awesome people. You can search Crushing Iron Group on Facebook, answer one simple question, and we will let you in. But for the most part, Mike and I, as best friends, coaches, athletes, just sit back, relax, try to have an open, honest discussion about what's going on in our life, deliver it in a way that you can consume it, make it your own. No sponsors, no ads, one agenda. That is to keep you happy and healthy in your endurance sports journey. I swam this morning.
Yeah, you're pumped.
I am kind of pumped.
I did a late
My
night
skin's dry.
workout again.
Last night you did?
I did a double yesterday. I split it up.
Well, define split it up.
I got
a double isn't a split.
I got on the bike early, noon yesterday.
Oh my God.
I ended up running about 6, 7
on the tread again.
Yeah, tready.
How long did you bike for? An hour.
Did a big gear 115.
All right. See, you didn't split. Don't need a double day.
Double
that's
day.
That's a solid Sunday. Did you do anything Saturday?
50-minute run on last night. No, yesterday. I honestly, I have my. I keep getting billed for that stupid storage unit. The new company bought it, and they raised the rate, and then I got a bounced credit card because my last card expired, and so I was trying to move out of there. So I lifted several, maybe like 15 to 20 loads up 70, flights of stairs, not flights, but 70 stairs.
Yeah.
So that was my workout Saturday, but then I brought it back with a double.
That's solid.
But it was interesting because I got on there and I did not feel like running, so I'm like, I'm going to go 20, and then I got to 30.
Yeah,
and then I got to 40. And I got to tell you.
You wanted to go 60, but you didn't.
No, I didn't. I went 50 minutes and 1 second. That was all I wanted. But I kept it super slow. And that's where actually at least one topic for today came back to me is I was thinking in terms of this idea of, like how we always want to improve and we want to get faster and stronger and all these sorts of things. And it was occurring to me that, because I brought it up with one of my athletes, and I am coaching now, accepting athletes. So if you want to, ask me questions or get to know me or whatever, crushingiron@gmail.com is my email. But I was telling him, because he just went through a big bike block, right? And like he did a virtual race, and it was like 500K, and he did it over 7 days or something like that. And I was really curious about that because I think you can't help but like really improve when you do those sort of focus things, even if it's not always visible. So I've been kind of watching him since then, and we've been doing, nothing crazy or anything like that. But it dawned on me how valuable it is to master where you are. Like in this idea of maybe he's not like quote unquote going for higher numbers or higher power all the time, but he's really, improved himself. So now he's at a different level. And then spend some time there and really own it, because like, it goes back to this idea where, once you do an Ironman or two, you kind of have a certain, that you can do it. There's no doubt in your mind, right? So you sort of have mastered at least part of that process to the level where you're going to be able to go into it and feel comfortable with it. And that's kind of where I'm thinking is like, as you get better at anything, if you sort of spend a little bit of time at each level, really, really drilling that into your core and into your memories and into your body, then it just is always sort of there. I mean, it's easier to get to that level, you know what I'm saying, rather than to continually just keep flying up the ladder.
Well, I mean, we live in a world that's like that we basically remove thinking about just staying present. It's all about what was done in the past and where are we going to go in the future. And that is where our mind takes us. What do we want, 10 years down the road? What are we trying to work back from 10 years ago? Like, and that's how people deal with their training. They're always that's one of the hardest things to work through with athletes as a coach is getting athletes to stay present, because every single athlete wants to get faster. Your job as a coach is literally never done. There is no time where like your athlete's gonna be like, hey, this was the best race ever. I'm really just content for the next 3 or 4 years to just kind of go through the motions. Like, this is probably my peak. I'm done. No, as soon as they have any race or a great race or a PR, whatever it is, they're like, yeah, but you know what? I think I'm going to go for the next, the next distance or the next drop down in terms of speed. Like this 5:15 was great, but I'm going to go sub 5 next time. Your job is never done. They're always wanting more. But one of the hardest things to get across is that you can't get far. You can't get further ahead unless you really stay present in where you are right now and focus on today or this specific training session, because everyone wants to go faster. Everyone wants to be stronger. Everyone wants to be able to go longer. And they feel like they have to all get it done today, because that's like what society and social media is like really presses. Like, if you want to, go big or go home, or, if there is no pain, no gain, like you feel like you have to be really stretching yourself thin in order to, and almost like the point of breaking to where you feel like you can actually are doing something that's going to get you to where you want to go. And the same goes for like the emotional, it's a new word, emotional.
The emotional.
Yeah, it's the combination of mental and emotional. It's the emotional. It's the emotional and mental aspect is that you also have athletes that it's simultaneously wanting to look in the future of how am I going to get faster within the next year? Why am I not there? And the person who's thinking that is the athlete that they were 2 years before that was, maybe a 12-minute mile. Now they're 10-minute mile. They see themselves as a slower athlete wanting to be the person they really already are, but then always want to be even faster. It's like we just have a very hard time being in the moment and understanding like what is best for me today, how is it going to be great for me in the future. And sometimes in 85-90% of the time, it's not going to be something that's like extravagant or, Instagram where it's just going to be just kind of getting it done today and like doing the best you have with that. Like that's this morning in Training Peaks, I'm not even like halfway through going through the weekend, but life stress is at like an all-time high for a lot of people for a variety of reasons. Not like I think we can probably just quit talking about the pandemic for the most part, because life is just stressful as is. Like the last 40 years of my life, I can go back through like periods of my life where I was much more stressed than I have been in like the last year. Like it's just stressful. Things happen. Like things happen in life. Job loss and relationships, like stuff with your kids or your parents. There's just hard. Life is hard. And I would argue, hopefully a lot of people agree with this, but if they don't, that's fine. I honestly believe that mental and emotional stress takes much more out of you than any physical stress you could possibly put on yourself. That if you had a really hard day at work or a huge fight with a loved one, that stress that's created within yourself then is so much more and has such a harder impact on your body than an hour and a half high intensity trainer ride. Or it will shell you for days. Like you could have it's just so hard. And that's what's kind of the comments I was making this morning was like, life stress takes way more out of you than like training stress does. And that's something that you have to be aware of, because it has to be able to complement each other. You have to be where you are, not where you thought you would be, not where you want to be or you expect to be, but where you are, and acknowledging that stress, and frankly, just being okay with it, because everyone else in life is like, life's great, baby, I'm crushing it. And you're like, well, shit, like right now, life's pretty hard for me. Like, how am I supposed to manage and still be ready for these races? But the greatest race we have is life, and navigating that, day in and day out should be your number one priority.
Mm-hmm. Something really came to me when you said that. It's this mental, emotional stress, and how it can be more impactful than physical stress. And I think that's exactly what I was trying to get at when I started, was this idea that mastering that moment seems so much more attainable. Because I think what a lot of us have a tendency to do is to turn a re-energizing sort of process of like working out on a treadmill or a bike or whatever, and we turn it into an emotional and a mental stress because we try to go too hard. You know what I mean? We're trying to take ourselves to another level and prove to ourselves. It's sort of like it becomes this, like we have to go out there and prove something. And then it becomes also, on top of a physical stress, it becomes a mental stress. And that's where I think the danger zone sometimes lies. And yesterday it was like I was on the treadmill and I was just thinking, man, I really want to be going faster, but this actually feels real good. And it's sort of like when you're in a moment where you're doing something, maybe you're doing it with Hayden or whatever, you're just playing Legos and stuff, and you're just in that moment. And instead of trying to be able to build the Empire State Building, you're just clicking blocks together. I was sort of thinking, like, my mom loves to build puzzles, and I imagine the feeling in that moment. There's no stress on that. You're not like in a contest or anything like that. You're just sort of like getting a handle on it. And when I say sort of master the moment, I think there's so many things in life in general now that, you know, we have access to, whether it's like, you know, we look up a recipe, and, you know, I've been doing that a lot lately because I've been cooking more, but like you look up the recipe and then I like quickly, I'm like, where the heck is it? Where's the time? Where's the temperature? That's all I need, you know? And then I go do it, and I'll be damned, the next time I go do it, I can't remember what, you know, two simple numbers, you know, like 390 degrees for 15 minutes or whatever it is. And I have to go back and look it up again. And I think that we do that rather than just sitting in that moment, mastering and remembering and letting everything sink in so you own it by reflex. We're always like trying to learn more and more and more and just pour information into our system rather than let information settle into our system.
Well, I think a lot of people, and this is like you know, I'm not that hard on, well, I kind of am on New Year's resolutions and the hoopla surrounding a brand new year in January 1st, like, because most people do that every single Monday. Right? It's like every Monday we all have a brand new lease on life for our workouts, for work, for whatever it is. It's like, I got it this week. It's Monday, baby. I got this. And then by Tuesday, you're like, oh my God, I can't do this anymore. Like, I've been punched in the mouth. What am I going to do? It's a day-to-day thing. And you said something there that stuck with me, and was that, you know, when when I lay out the week's worth of workouts for an athlete, and even for myself, when I look at workouts, I think, God, I'm so excited for this one, or I can't wait to tackle this challenging one, or you know, on the flip side, God, that ride looks so boring. It's only zone 1 and zone 2. Like, I wish it was hard. And then Thursday gets there, and you're like, okay, this is actually perfect. Like, this is what I needed. It was easy. Like, I needed easy today. Or on the flip side, from not being able to live in the moment, you know, think about it this way, like, a lot of athletes see a hard workout and they expect to perform perfectly every single time they have one. And a lot of times they totally forget how, like, what life is doing to them, whether it's high stress, whether kids at home, you know, doing e-learning, whether it's they are dealing with other, you know, life stress or financial stress, or they're you know, maybe they ate like crap the day before, maybe they slept like crap, maybe they had too much caffeine. They still have that kind of mental thought of, yeah, but Monday I said I was going to really do awesome this workout, so I better go awesome today. Even if your body is saying, dude, relax today. Like, I know you want this big time, but it's like you know, leaving the garage with, you know, with a fourth of a tank in it and expecting it to drive 500 miles. You know, you're like, oh, why can't I do this today? Well, you didn't leave the garage with like a full tank. Like, that's not going to happen, but you can expect it to happen because you want to happen. It doesn't mean it's good for you. It doesn't mean that your body needs it or even wants it, but you mentally feel like you have to do it. And I think that phrase alone is like I don't want to say it's a red flag, but it's kind of like an alert goes off with me if I hear or read an athlete being like, yeah, I feel like I had to do X, Y, and Z. And I'm like, okay, why did you feel like you had to? What got you to the point, or the thought process that was, I had to do this workout because I'd have felt guilty, or I really wanted to do this workout, and so I feel like I had to, or any kind, like, when you get into the thought process of it's a chore, or it's an errand, or it's a responsibility that you just don't really want to do, and it becomes a have to, not a want to or a should, or I feel like this would be better for me, then you're probably working against other factors in your life that are making you feel like it's a responsibility and not part of a positive process that training should be. Now, every workout isn't going to be perfect. You're not going to look at your week and be like, all these are going to go perfectly and they're all going to go great. If they do, wonderful. But for the most part, you're going to have to wake up every day and plan your day and just be aware of like, hey, this isn't going to go great. I mean, me, for example, like if I put my training week together, I usually change like at least 2 workouts a week. Like I rarely ever do, like if I set out a Monday through Sunday schedule, I rarely ever do it in that exact order perfectly, because sometimes I'll wake up and be
So
like,
you literally move things, or you change the particular workouts?
I'll do the exact workout, but I'll just move them like around the entire day.
Yeah, that's what I did yesterday.
Like in my Texas build, I think I went back and looked, there was 2 weeks out of the 16 that I kept them as is. All the other ones I totally moved around, which is totally fine. Like I tell that to athletes who are like, hey, can I move my 25-minute run to tomorrow? Yes, you can. Like, yeah, and there's things you shouldn't do, but all of it was based on waking up that day and being like, what do I feel like is going to keep my momentum going in the right direction? Or is this workout going to put the brakes on it? Or is it going to slow it down? Or is it going to make me want to just frankly get out of the car? Training is all about consistency, and consistency is momentum. And I think an athlete even worded it that way in Training Peaks going back in their week. It was like, and I said, like, whatever keeps this positive momentum going, do it. Because that's all training is being able to do things day in and day out, week in and week out. I don't care what it looks like. I give you a structured ride on Thursday, but you want to go out and ride in the snow on your fat bike. Go outside on your fat bike and do that, because if that's going to keep you, in the moment and really just, I think present, but also I love the word engaged, like being really, really engaged with what exactly is going on right now, what exactly you need. And frankly, not giving a shit what else is out there. Like, you know what I need right now? I need to go outside on my fat tire bike or my gravel bike, whatever. I don't need the structured workout. I just need to get out of the house today, mountain bike, whatever. Go do it. Empower yourself to feed the part of you that you feel like is starving. And I think that's something that athletes really struggle with, because they're so rigid and inflexible in every aspect of their training that it has to be done this way. It has to be done perfect. It has to be done this specific day at this specific time. Oh my God, someone's in my lane. Someone took my time slot, or it's raining outside, and they have zero room for flexibility. So they're already they're stressed immediately, right? Because training's supposed to remove stress and help you with that. They're adding stress to their life because they're so rigid in their approach to training that they're failing to recognize the part of them that is starving, which for most people it is, and especially right now, it's getting their butt outside. Like, go outside. Don't become so, comfortable inside that, guess what? Because guess what's going to happen? Come March, April, May, when it's going to get nicer and prettier in the sunshine, you know what you're going to be most comfortable doing? Staying inside. Go outside. So if heading out on a different kind of bike and doing yes, do those things. It's about momentum. It's not, one ride isn't going to kill you. 2 rides, 3 rides, 4 rides aren't going to kill you. You're still getting work done. Like, it might not be the exact work, but it's still work. And it's not just feeding you physically. It's obviously feeding you mentally and emotionally as well.
And you like that.
I love that.
Hey,
emotionally.
Now, you said you were talking about moving workouts and how you do that all the time, and how it's a good thing. It's okay. And I agree. And I like, I'm working with a lot of athletes now, and they ask me that, and I basically talk about, it's cool, but think about the integrity of the week or the progressions here. Like, maybe don't put 2 tough workouts and, your 2 toughest on the same day. But I would like for you to expand on how you think about that. Like, what's not a good way to change workouts, and what is a good way? Because I think a lot of athletes, have that and want to do that. And I think we want to create that flexibility, but we also don't want to put them in a bad position by adding, like the 2 out of 12 workouts this week, the 2 toughest ones right on the same day or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, this is different for every athlete, especially if you're working off a training plan, or you are doing your own training, or you're coached by someone else. Like, it may look totally different, but in my opinion, you should feel pretty much empowered to make almost whatever move you feel like you need to make, because 89% of your workouts most weeks should be pretty chill anyway. So it's almost like, all your ingredients should in some way, shape, or form still be able to be, put in your put in there. You might not follow the recipe, just as it's prescribed, but you should still be able to put whatever you want to in the pot whenever you want to put it and still come out with a really good dish.
Or a bad one, and then you learn.
Right, exactly. Or you're like, I'm going to put a lot of this on here, or I'm going to put too much. Like you get an hour run schedule, and you're like, oh, well, I'm going to do an hour, 2 hours. Okay, that's too much of an ingredient. It's probably not going to work out very well for you. But you should, like the way that the week, at least the way that we usually structure a week for the majority of athletes is that like, yeah, you have 1 or 2, maybe 3 hard sessions a week. You don't want to do all 3 of those back to back to back. That would be poor management. Now, even if you did like 2 back to back, that wouldn't be great because you wouldn't be fully rested, but that's also fine because you shouldn't be so fatigued that, that you're going to have a bad result or it's going to end up putting you, way behind and maybe overtraining or maybe overextending yourself. For the most part, it's like, if they're easy things, then put them back to back to back to back. Like, they're all easy. They should complement, they're still going to complement each other. If they fit in your schedule, loop them in. If it's, again, if it's 2 hard bike rides in a row, don't do it. Not don't do it, but be aware that it's probably not going to get the same result you could have gotten if you had a little bit of rest. And athletes will say this, like, oh, this didn't really feel as good as I wanted to do. Well, yeah, you moved your long run from Sunday to Thursday, and you're pretty shell from it, and you hopped on the bike on Friday and expected to have this really great interval workout. That's not probably going to happen, because the extra fatigue that you had, that's not how the week was laid out. So yeah, you need to be careful and aware of that, but you also need to look at, what did you do, maybe not over the course of the week, but really look at like the last 7 to 10 days and how those kind of link up. And then also the next 7 to 10 days, like am I going to have a period where I'm really not doing any intensity? I'm having a period where I'm doing too much intensity. But generally speaking, like you should be able to maneuver things around into a way that, fits your schedule best because they're low impact, in my opinion, very low risk sessions. Now, having said that, there are some athletes out there who, probably hammer themselves 5 or 6 times a week. So to them, moving around isn't a big deal because they hammer themselves every day anyway. So it's really going to be just, a lot of the same. But, just be aware of it. And if you're, having said that, if you end up, in a situation where you stack 2 workouts a week, like 2 workouts in a day, where you do a really hard bike session, in the morning and a really hard run session in the evening, that's not bad. It just means that you also need to be very aware that your next 2 to 3 days need to be very, very easy to let that higher intensity day, because you weren't, from a stress standpoint, you weren't looking at that Wednesday as a 200 stress day. Because you originally scheduled as like a 100 stress day, so your next days were to complement a 100 stress day, not a 200 stress day. So now you need to lower the stress the next 2 or 3 days to let all that extra stress accumulate, so become overtrained, so you're ready for the harder workouts on Saturday and Sunday. So you always have to kind of look at it that way. And plus, you don't know what life's going to say. Life might be like, oh, well, you thought that was great, I'm going to bump up the stress week. That's like a huge conversation I have with athletes when we talk about recovery weeks and stress. Is like, we had, and this is like, I just had this like text conversation with an athlete who was like, I really want to skip my recovery week next week and go up 1 more week in volume because the next week I work a lot and I've got my girls and it's super, super stressful. And that's probably the best time for a recovery week. That doesn't sound like recovery, right? Like we have this, and I think I used this analogy like this, or maybe last year on the cast, was like, yeah, I decided to take the day off. It was a really down day. I went to like 5 Suns baseball games and I did 4 hours of landscaping. And like, that doesn't sound like a down day. Like that is not recovery. Like I think we think, and again, going back to like life stress, mental and emotional stress takes so much more of a toll on our body than training stress does. We think, because we always put training at the top, like we think taking a day off training means, oh, I'm just going to be reset back to 0, baby. Like I am back. Like this is nothing. I'm just resting and recovering. And if you had a hellacious day at work or, high stress with your kids, there ain't no recovery. Like just because you aren't physically doing a 1.5 hour ride doesn't mean you're going to be bouncing off the walls ready, crisp and spry the next day. That's when and many times like you want to lower the demand on an athlete. It's not to, and they're going to have more time. So in my opinion, go into that week where you're going to have a high stress week already, especially if you're in the medical field and this athlete is, and you're going to have your kids at home more often. That's a high stress week. Let's get you back to baseline before that. And we can manage our way through the week the best we need to, but that doesn't mean, you up the ante, so you go into that week fatigued, and then you have to deal with more life and mental stress than you have previously. Like, get back to fresh, because then we can manage our way through and be ready to roll after that, instead of going through what I would consider two hard weeks no matter what. So it's all about, again, managing life stress and what your kind of day-to-day stress. And that's also about being aware and being honest with yourself. It's like, and I think that's part of why I love Training Peaks and like being able to put comments in there and read athletes, is that they can be really, really honest with how they're doing emotionally and mentally, because that is, I'll be honest with you, that is for the most part, like, I look at how they are doing with life just as much as how they're doing with training, because if they're not dealing with life well, then they can't deal with training well. And so you have to be able to understand that and be honest with that. And athletes that do a great job communicating where they are in life and what they're struggling with or what they're doing well with, they get a much better, probably balanced, appropriate training load, because you're able to balance the three-headed monster that is, a triathlete's life, which is physical, emotional, and mental stress. And you can't just negate out the rest or just guess. You have to be really aware of what's going on. And so the athletes that that are really honest with how they're doing with their life, they usually do the best in terms of managing load, because they get the right load. It's not like, it's like going to the doctor's office and being like, hey, it kind of hurts. It's really not that bad. On a scale of 1 to 10, what is it, man? That's like a 3. In your head, you're like, God, it's totally a 10. They're not going to give you the right prescription. They're not going to give you the right pain meds. It's going to be like, oh, well, you can take up ibuprofen. Then you go home, you take it. You're like, this isn't good. Like, I'm still in pain. I should have been more honest with how I was really, really feeling, but I wasn't for whatever reason. I need to be honest, and honesty is always the best policy.
It's very interesting how you looked at that. I totally agree with it, because that, a stressful week with kids and a lot of things going on can be, I'll go back to this weekend. I on Saturday, when I'm going up 70 stairs with 15 to 20 loads of 30 to 50 pounds, that was harder to me than the thought of doing a big gear workout. And part of me was guilty. I felt guilty because I didn't do it, but then I'm like, man, I got a good workout in there. And that really was something in the right direction, right? So then on Sunday, when I'm like, all right, I did my workout at noon, the bike workout, that felt pretty good. My instinct was just to get right on the treadmill and do my run immediately. But I thought, no, just, go eat and refuel and rest a little bit and kind of let your legs get under you. And I'm glad I did, because it wasn't an easy run, but I aimed low on that run, and I kept it low, and I made it further than I thought I was going to make. And that all worked out beautifully, And I always think about that when you were talking about putting your 2 most difficult workouts back to back, for example, like on if you're moving things around and then all of a sudden it just turns out long run, hard ride, whatever, or if you want to do 2 hard rides in a row. And we've talked about this many, many moons ago, and I still think it's a very good philosophy that people may not think of, is like, if you want to do a hard bike in the morning on a Wednesday, and for some reason you flipped it another bike or onto a Thursday, if you put that at night on a Thursday, you're almost creating 2 days instead of 1. So it's about time spacing, spatial time elements or whatever, of creating 2 days in 1 day or whatever. Like, thinking of things like that, I think, are always valuable too, because, even yesterday, my 6 hours between that ride and the run made a world of difference, rather than if I would have just jumped on there, and who knows what would have come out of that, exhaustion maybe, or, and then just embracing and feeling okay that you didn't really like nail it, but you kind of nailed it, you know what I mean? And then it's really a good feeling walking away from there going, I did it. I was really consistent in the pocket of whatever that was, and I know I owned it, and I'm not wiped today. For me, that was a big day yesterday, sort of in the progress of where I'm coming from right now, and I feel good.
I think a lot of athletes, and again, like I talk about, like waking up and just seeing each day for what it is, or looking back 7 or 10 days and looking forward 7 to 10 days, is that, when I've been trying to do a better job of like planning out, and so athletes can see the, totally where we're going in like, 2 or 3 week blocks. And I think sometimes when athletes look at the progression, I'll use like the long run as example, like you've gone through a down, a recovery week, and then you're like, all right, now it's time to build 3 weeks in a row. And you look at, so you're coming into the block itself fresh, right? You're coming into this block totally fresh, not totally,
right,
but fairly fresh. come to a new 3-week block and you see, the first Sunday's long run is an hour and 20. And then you see the next, the next week's hour long run is going to be an hour and 30. And then the next week you see the next long run is also an hour and 30. I'm like, wait a minute, shouldn't I be going up? Shouldn't I be doing more? And the week doesn't look that much different. I'm only getting a little bit like, why am I not, going up and up and up? Well, you're not, because oftentimes in the very last week, especially like the last 4 days of a really solid, if the athlete's been consistent of a solid 3 or 4 week cycle, you're tired. So your hour and 20 minute gets like, oh, well, I should be, and your body's like, oh, well, I did an hour and 30 this week. I can definitely do an hour and 45 next week. It doesn't adapt that fast. And so you can't look at it like, oh, I can just go up, on a gradual, trajectory of a trend that's like, hey, hour and 15, hour and 30, hour and 45. It doesn't work like that if you are also doing all the supplementary work that goes Monday through Saturday. So your hour, hour and 15, hour and a half, the hour and a half run you do on the end of that third week is probably going to feel so much harder than the one you did the week, not so much, but a little bit harder, because your legs are going to be carrying, 20 days of fatigue, of, 7 to 10 rides, of 6 to 7, swims, of, 14 to 16 runs. Like, so your hour and a half run on that day is going to have the accumulated fatigue of the previous 20 days load. So you can't just continuously load up athletes, incrementally, and expect their body to absorb the weekly load and the weekend load all at the same time. And also keep moving it upwards. You have to be very aware of doing it, especially, again, going back, as long as the athletes are consistent, most athletes are, that's how you have to gradually ramp and trend athletes, is in a very progressive way, and be, okay, well, and then you load them up that way, and then that's when the next week is a down week. You recover them if they need it, and then you move on to the next one. But you have to take into account all of the stress, the accumulated stress, and like you said, it could be the night before, or it could be and then the next morning you're like, I didn't feel that great. Well, going to your example, I have a lot of athletes that like to work out, late at night, or they do it because they had to. Like, oh, well, I'll hop in the trainer at 9 o'clock in the morning, and next morning I woke up to swim and I don't feel that great. Yeah, because you worked out like 10 hours ago, you worked out hard and you didn't get enough sleep. Why are you expecting this to go great? Like, the only problem here was your expectation. The problem wasn't the workout or your ability. The problem was your expectation totally didn't take into account that you went off very minimal sleep. You're probably stressed, and your body just did a really hard workout and probably hasn't had enough fueling or time to recover from it. So yes, that's why you didn't have that great of a feeling of a workout.
There's something really beautiful about getting to a point in the day when you are like, man, I really feel like putting on my run clothes right now and going to do it, rather than, man, I just don't feel this, like those subtle hints. And, granted, we've sort of created a lifestyle where that is a lot more flexible and feasible. And and it's, in some ways I feel like that's been my life's goal, is to create that opportunity where I can do things in the time when I want them. It's not a bad goal, really. Think about it. And the beauty of it is that when that creates a momentum where you're really going after things, like last night I was in Training Peaks at, typical me at 10 o'clock at night or whatever, doing emails, stuff like that on a Sunday. And I texted you this morning. I was like, hey, can we delay the podcast a little bit? And you're like, yeah, that's good. And we just did it. So but I don't know. I think there's some really good stuff in there about, like, even if you get to the end of that 3-week tough block, and like you're saying that, you had 130 the week before a run and a 130 the next week, it's the same one. And then you're saying it's going to be more difficult, because of the fatigue buildup, and it's maybe harder and whatever to master. But what if it isn't? What if it feels good? Is that a bad thing? You know what I'm saying? It's like, that's the old aim low philosophy that I have. It's like, that's a long, that's a solid run, hour and 30. And if you're like really in a good spot when you get done with that, good for you.
But if you and it should feel good, like or it might feel slightly uncomfortable. You should feel some fatigue, but you shouldn't feel trash. And I think, like, when you look at a 3-week build, you think, oh, I got 3 weeks. Well, not really. You've got 15 days. If you look at your 3 long runs, you've got a Sunday, and then you're up. And so you'll see you do it. And this is how some people ramp up. Like, you see training plans built like this, especially if they're done by mileage, where they're like, well, you're ready for a 10 miler, and the next week it's 12, the next week it's 14. So you're telling me I'm ready to make like a 33% jump in 2 weeks because you have a Sunday doing 10.
Big when
you go, you have a Sunday where you go 10. If you just look at it on a 3 Sunday scale, Sunday 10 miles, the next week from that, you do 12. And then a week from that, you do 14. You're telling me you can jump from 10 to 14 just like that. So it's like a little under 33%, I guess. But you're making that kind of a jump while also accumulating more fatigue during the week without having a down week? No, your body doesn't adapt that quickly. I hate to break it to you, and I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but that's not how your body works. Your body doesn't be like, oh, well, I can totally jump 30 and have it be a beneficial run where you feel good. It's going to be, you're going to be smashed. Like, yes, you could probably make it and probably walk the last 20 of it or do a walk run to just barely get by and then be shelved the next 2 or 3 days. Sure, go for it. But you're going to be doing more trauma and bad negative things to your body than doing good. And you won't be able to wake up the next day and just continue to progress or feel like doing anything worth a darn Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday of the following week. So don't look at it as like, oh, well, it's 3 weeks. Look at it as 2. Look at it for what it is, which is 14 days with 3 long runs, and think, oh, well, do I really? Progression takes time. Like, your body, yes, is a fascinating and amazing thing, but it doesn't adapt that quickly. It just doesn't, especially if it's under load during the week already. So you can't look at it. You just, and I get it. I think it's a hard concept maybe to wrap your brain around as an athlete who doesn't have coaching experience or just kind of goes week to week and looking at a plan, but that's the things you have. Those are the things you have to look at in terms of how much can you handle, and that's also like how you end up loading athletes. Is you don't just load them on a day; you load them in little blocks of 3 to 4 days, or even 8 to 9 days. If you look at how you're scheduling, double ride weekends or long runs on a Wednesday, or maybe even double runs on a Wednesday, and then another long run on a Sunday. Like, you're looking at how you can piece together and sneak in like these 5 to 6, 7 day blocks are getting in more and more and more volume, more and more intensity, to where, the amount of intensity and volume shrinks to what they're able to actually get in on a 3 or 4 day span, because that's going to bode, well for how they're going to be able to do at long distance racing. Like, that's how you build things up. You don't do it all at once, you do it over time. And again, I think that's just something that anytime you say, well, what happens over time, you're like, well, how much time? I don't know. We can't put like a definite number on it. Well, I want a number. I want a day. I want a pace. I want a power. When am I going to get there? I don't know. We just don't know. Well, that's not very fun. I want to be able to know, but that's just how your body works. Like, if you already knew how it worked and knew when you would get there, you'd be there already. And that's just not how endurance sports training goes. You can't put a time limit on it. You can't put a date on it. And that's, again, I think that's why it's hard for athletes to have trouble living in the moment and want to live out in the future of when's this going to happen. They get so frustrated because life and training isn't working on their schedule that they end up giving up or trying to take shortcuts, which actually end up stalling the improvement that they're wanting to make because they get so impatient.
Yeah. That would be like us trying to go from an hour podcast to 2 hours in like 15 days. God. What do you think would happen? It would be
we'd
like
quit.
Dead air. We'd quit. We'd be emotionally fatigued. And
yeah, I'm already emotionally fatigued, even like that you mentioned it.
I know, man. That can really have an impact, but I think that might be a good study. Should we just start doing 2 hour podcasts?
No. You can do that with somebody else.
You can walk away at the hour mark, and I'll just blabber for the next hour and just see how many people like hang around and listen
wait for
to
the reviews to roll in.
I'll run the music at the end, and then I'll just hang around and just keep talking. I'll review the podcast we just had. Well,
I can say we would lose. We would lose forward momentum because we would no longer be excited about doing it. We wouldn't feel amped to do it. We wouldn't feel this. We'd be like, till never. Like, but that's part of it, is being reasonable with the effort that you have to put in. And like, using that as an example, like if we had made that our goal to set out and do, what we're going to do? We're going to do a 2 hour podcast twice a week. And that's what we're going to do. We wouldn't have made it a week. Like
I know, man.
And we would, but what we did is we looked at each other, we talked, and we thought, okay, what can we realistically do? What do we think we can sustain for a long period of time? Once a week? Easily, for sure. Twice a week? It felt challenging, but it felt about right. It felt like about enough to keep us accountable and keep us in a space where we would have to grow and we'd have to continuously be on point. Because honestly, I feel like if we did it once a week, I feel like I'd be lazy with it. Like, we just got one a week. Like, what's the deal with doing it?
That's a good point.
But when you do it twice a week, it's like, and I feel that way as obvious, like as the previous week's podcast, it was like, I feel out of it. Like, I feel like I don't do it enough to be good at it or even be, comfortable and mediocre with it like we are now. It's like, we picked something that we knew we could do.
Quite half-assed.
And here, it's right. It's not quite half-assed. It's full-ass. But then you look at us almost 5 years later, and we haven't missed a week where we've done it twice a week. And I feel like the best thing we did was set ourselves up for success. And I feel like athletes do themselves a disservice so often by overselling or overcomplicating or setting their expectations too high or biting up too much, biting up more than they can chew, and they end up failing. It's not that they're a failure. It's not that they can't. It's that they continuously sign up for too many races, or they sign up for races in a bad, in a bad time of the year, or they sign up for, too many Ironman, or they overextend themselves, or they set too many expectations that aren't right for them. It's not that they're a failure. It's not that they can't. It's that they have yet to find or accept the right balance or understand that they need the right environment to thrive and succeed and do. Like, you see this all the time in professional sports. You see an athlete who just couldn't find their way within a certain program or under a certain coach. You see it all the time going from college to pro. Like, you see, like, who was this guy? And you're like, they just weren't in the right program, or they weren't in the right system with this coach or this university, or, that just didn't fit them well. Now they're in the pros and they fit the right scheme and they are like a breakout superstar. Life is so much about timing, who you're around, and what in the environment that you put yourself in. And so many athletes peg themselves in a specific environment or as a specific type of athlete that they never really fully grasp, like, the potential that they have, because they don't put themselves in the right situation. And that's what coaches are supposed to do. We're supposed to put athletes in the best situation possible, given the life restraints they have. But so many athletes just, especially if they're self-coached, just run into a wall year in and year out because they want what their body doesn't have time for, or what their life doesn't have time for. Then they end up feeling like they can't ever improve when the recipe is there. You're just looking on the wrong shelf.
Yeah. Looking forward to the Monday. That's like a philosophy or a thought I always have, is like, it's sort of like when you can look forward to tomorrow. Like, why, there's always going to be tougher days in your life, no matter what, like tomorrow I got to go, do this and blah, blah, I got these meetings, whatever. But if you can kind of be prepared mentally for those tougher days, or because the reason I bring up Monday is because I think a lot of people are like, back to the grind or whatever. Mm-hmm. And they kind of have that sort of general philosophy going on through their lives. And I get it, but like, even when I was in corporate, there was times, for whatever reason, I felt rested. I felt like I was in good shape. I was mentally prepared, and like Monday didn't seem like that big of a deal. And I think, to me, those are the nuances of life that we need to try to solve those puzzles with. And a lot of that comes down to, I think, what we've been talking about today, which is prepare your body in the right way, and don't overdo workouts, or like you don't prove something to yourself today at the expense of tomorrow, kind of thing. And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, the beauty is that consistency creates momentum philosophy. And I just think that so much of that has to do with self-restraint. And again, what you said about like going into this podcast with, like, it's manageable, but it feels like a little bit of a challenge, it's appropriately challenging, and the 2 a week. And we do that. And we've kind of, found that groove. It's like second nature. We're like, all right, well, we just got to get back at it. Let's do it.
Yep.
And we get into it, and we're not overcooked. Occasionally we've done, I think, 3 in 1 week to be prepared.
We did 3 in a row,
which we may do this week. I don't know, because of next week.
Oh yeah,
Actually, we'll probably do it at run camp like we did last time, if you're cool with that. Remember?
Yeah, if you want to.
You don't want to?
No.
You didn't like it, huh?
I hated it. I hate not being in my environment. I'm a creature of habit. So
it
was
cozy couch.
It's a cozy couch, but yeah, I'd rather do it beforehand.
Inspired by the camp, more of a live feel.
Oh well, yeah, maybe
or
you can do a bonus cast and just have people on. But I feel like I need to do mine early.
Oh, bonus cast. All right, well, we'll do it early. Maybe we'll do this Monday, Wednesday, Friday.
We're being flexible. But no, going back to like what you said about, well, at least I'm trying to be flexible. We'll see if you are. I was actually had that thought.
You're being stern.
I mean, it's Monday. I had that thought in the pool earlier.
Oh,
about restraint. I was like, man, I'm feeling pretty good today. I did like about 1,500, and I was like, I bet you I could get in another 500. But then I thought to myself, I still would like to bike later, and I still have a lot of work left to do. We have the podcast, and I was like, is this extra 500 really going to do a lot for me fitness-wise, or is it going to make me feel like biking at 2 o'clock? My next thought was, I actually put the pull buoy back on. I'd done some 50s, and I was like, I'm going to cool down. I'm probably going to maybe I'll just do 2,000, finish off another 500 easy. And I probably swam for another 30 seconds, and I was like, nope. You know what? I'm going to get back. I'm going to get out. I feel good. I feel fresh. I feel appropriately tired. And what I want to do is be able to get back on the bike at, 1, 2 o'clock today and be like, you know what? I want to be ready for that. I'm going to feel like I'm ready for the podcast. I want to feel exhausted. It's a Monday. I have the week in front of me. I've got, plenty of work left to do. This was enough today. I don't need to prove to myself that I can still do 2,000, at whatever. Why is that funny?
It's just it's okay to feel good after a workout.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about that yesterday. I did a 115 bike. I know I could go do 100 miles right now, but would that be smart? It would take me forever, for one.
It would take you forever. And I was about to challenge you on that. You think you could do 100 right now? I mean, you could.
100%.
Easily. Define easily. Is this like you crushed your 2,000-yard swim 3 years ago when you texted me? You were like, dude, I crushed it. And I was like, really? What'd you do?
Ready to race.
I did like 1,400. It was whatever.
I mean, it would take a long time. But I think I could. I mean, I went up to Madison and rode a loop, and I hadn't ridden in 6 months, so I did 40 miles of the hills. And
you could swing it.
I could swing it.
All right,
but it doesn't make sense. Even if even that day, it was like some of the people rode 2 loops. I was like, I could probably do that, but man, that's just going to really
eat your lunch.
I might not have gotten back to Chattanooga for a month. It's just been like, hey, bro, I'm still in a whirlpool.
2 loops there. 2 loops there would have eaten your lunch. And you know what else I did after I did my swim?
What?
I discarded it.
What?
I didn't even save it. I discarded it.
Oh, you threw it out of
I threw it out. Deleted it.
Why?
Because I just felt like, I don't know. I was like, you know what? That was good enough. I don't need to save it. I don't need to show it to anybody. I was happy.
You don't want anybody to see it.
No, I was clipping out 136s a day, baby. I would have been more than fine with people seeing it. But you know what I felt like it was? I felt like it was a compliment to the rest of my week.
It was just like a nice little warm up.
It was. I was like, you know what? Okay. I wanted to swim today. It felt good.
Like a walk with a dog.
It was. I mean, it felt more than a walk with a dog. But it came down to save, and I was like, yeah, discard. And I was like, I'm going to get back in on Wednesday. Because it wasn't so much about proving it and showing that I could do it. It was that I wanted to swim this morning. Like I was working, and I got back, you know what I want to go swim right now. So I felt the need, and of course it's like totally irrelevant to everyone else on this planet except for me. But I felt like, you know what? It wasn't like I didn't go in the workout thinking I have to show it to somebody. I have to prove it to somebody. I have to make it be known. I just wanted to go swim today. And I felt like, you know what? That's a good mode to be in. So hopefully tomorrow I'll want to swim too. And it won't be because I saved and I want to compare it. It's because I wanted to get in the water. I wanted to get back in swim shape, and I want to keep doing it. And I feel like that for me, that was what was going to set me up for success, was just holding on to that notion of, I did it because I wanted to. I did it because I had fun doing it. I did it because I finally got back into I feel like I had a good feel for the water today. I felt like I wasn't swimming fast for me, but I was swimming solid. And I want to keep that feeling. So I'm going to discard it. I'm going to get back. I'm going to do it again, hopefully tomorrow.
Well, I think there's a lot to be said for that, especially on getting back into it.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like you're not trying to prove anything. You're not trying to you're just trying to get your baseline back and trying to feel good about being in the water. And of course, that's been my thing for a long time, although I'm more into the Garmin set now, but I would go out and do rides with my chrono. There would be no record.
Mm-hmm.
I did that many, many times in my life, and it felt fine. I'd run like that a lot. I'd just hit restart, do sets on my own or whatever. I get done, and I'd be like, what did I just do? I don't know. No one will ever know.
I could argue that you have now become more of a gadget guy than I am.
That's not true.
I'm going to go there. You're Mr. Gadget now.
You're Mr. Gadget.
You were telling me about something syncing or uploading to a watch that I had no idea of the other day. And I was like, who the hell are you? And what'd you do with Mike Terali? Do you even still own a chrono? Because you've become best friends with the Garmin now. Just tell me this. This will answer all my questions.
All right.
Do you sleep with it on?
No.
Okay.
Are you kidding me?
I don't understand.
I heard people that it's heart rate, right?
It's trash. Heart rate.
in this.
It's trash. Okay, I think the wrist-based heart rate is trash anyway, but I don't know how people sleep with these gigantic like Phoenix 6s on. They're like freaking sundials. I'm like, how in the world do you sleep? You can't roll over, okay? Because it would like injure your wrist. I don't know how people sleep with their watch. Like, oh, I got 7 hours of sleep last night and 3.5 was an REM. I hate to break it to you. Your watch doesn't know jack shit about your REM sleep and your deep sleep. It just has no idea whatsoever, okay? Zero. Take your watch off. Do your wrist a favor.
I take my watch off after the workout and put it right next to my phone because I think that's the only way it's going to sync up.
But it's like...
I'm afraid I'll be too far away.
Do you still walk outside on your balcony to get better service?
No.
You're like, I think I need to hold it up real high. You're like, I think I'm going to get... I got 3 bars, John. I got 3 bars over here.
No, we're in
We can send our text message. We're in the gig city, baby.
Gig city. I could be in a basement.
Is that a wrap?
I think it is, yeah. Yeah.
I will do have to say, since I just got an email from Stuart Rogers that popped up on my watch. My 2 like least gadgety people are flipping the shark. You become like a super gadget guy, and Stuart Rogers, I fell out of my seat last night as I was reading it. I couldn't even respond to it last night because I feel like I was in a dream. He emailed us and it was interested in getting a power meter and getting on Zwift. And I was like, who the F are you, Stuart Rogers? Obviously, he's doing it because his work will reimburse him, and he's about as frugal as they come. But still, it's like all these people that I've known for such a long period of time that have like basically been the anti-gadget tech software, you are now becoming like you're becoming it. You're like senior millennials is kind of like what is happening, and I feel slightly uncomfortable about it, to be honest.
I just ordered a running power meter. Wait, is that what they're called?
Are you kidding?
Yes, I'm kidding.
Okay, because we were going to have a really serious talk off here that may not end the podcast. It's like retirement. It's history.
Yeah, so if you're looking for a gadget coach,
hit up Mike if you want to just go by yoga, flexibility, and feel. Hit me up. We're flip-flopping how things go. But no, we appreciate you. As always, we'll be stuck around at the end of this podcast.
Scale of 1 to 10. How did that soup taste?
6.5, baby. 6.5. If you got any questions, comments, concerns, hit up Mike, crushingiron@gmail.com. If you want to reach out to me directly, I'm at c26coach@gmail.com. And head over to a one-stop shop. That's our website. It is c26triathlon.com. We're still doing our club membership right now. You can hop under the coaching tab, drop a few down. Hit up the club membership tab, more info there. Mike's in charge of that. He's also accepting athletes right now. And hop over to our gear side. We got new hats and visors in. We got sweatshirts, long sleeve, short sleeve. Mike is like a freaking one-man FedEx crew right now. So hit him up, and he'll make sure he logs those steps in Training Peaks via his Garmin. That's all I got. You got anything else?
No, that's it. Let's end it right there.
Perfect. Go look up some more geeky tech stuff.
All right, buddy.
See you, dude. See ya.